Hello there, and a huge welcome to this week's episode of Gina Gardner and Friends. And today I'm joined by Carrie Hart. Now, she's an intuitive and a spiritual explorer. And when we first spoke, I had no idea what a spiritual explorer was. But we're going to be exploring intuition during this session, and particularly looking at how intuition can help you in your business. All of you, I'm sure, have had times when, you've had that gut feeling about things. And I don't know about you, Carrie, but whenever I've ignored that gut feeling, which says, be careful, I've always regretted it. So, Carrie, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Gina. It's such a pleasure to be here.
What do you mean by spiritual explorer?
Well, I just have never been comfortable buying into anybody's system of spiritual or religious thinking. And I like to try everything out myself. I like to experiment and find out what works. And what I found as a result of that, of course, is that what works for me might not be what works for you. And so to me, spirituality is this exciting, exciting land that we can go in and visit and experiment and find out what goes beyond our rational thinking and our ego desires.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. I feel like a child in a sweetie shop in terms of
Yes, exactly.
I want to try it all, and I want to try it all now. And
That's right.
I love what you say in that the dogma of whether that's the spiritual dogma or the religious dogma always seems to me to get in the way of my connection with myself and my connection with source or God, whichever you want to call it.
Right.
I know it works really well for some people. And I think that's the message that seems to me really so important is you've got to find what works for you.
That's right.
And there's no right or wrong. It's just different.
Exactly. And it is so different for everyone. In every area, intuition is one. How we access information in that land that I call Attaquay, which is that place we go with our intuition that goes beyond time and space. It's so different for everyone, and it's different in healing systems too. Everything that we do in this, we call it a spiritual dimension, but it covers everything. It's like our connection, it's energy, right? It's
Yeah.
how we deal with the energy that surrounds us, that's more than just our physical body.
Because we're all energy, aren't we? I mean, we like to think of ourselves as being pretty solid, but the physicists have sussed that every part of us and everything in the world is just a form of energy.
That's right. Yeah, we are. We think we're solid, but we're just a lot of spinning atoms. And I read something once that I really liked about that, and they said you could think about it like a fan. If when the fan is running, it seems like it's almost solid. You can't put your hand through it.
Um,
But in fact, if it stops, you can see that it's all a lot of space. And it's my understanding that's what we are too.
that's a really good way of looking at it. Before we go any further, so how did you come to determine that you were a spiritual being, that you were a spiritual adventurer? At what
Yeah.
stage in your life, what was it? What was the catalyst that took you to that place?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I was raised outside of religion, and I had absolutely no interest in religion or what we call the paranormal, no interest whatsoever. And I was in the corporate world in in computers. And then right around my 50th birthday, I remember that birthday distinctly because two friends gave me books that had a spiritual leaning. One was a Deepak Chopra book, another was The Artist's Way. I don't know if you remember those. And I thought, well, these are interesting. And in the artist way, they had an exercise to go write down what they call daily pages. Every day you just write down some pages in a journal, 3 pages. And I loved it. And so I was enjoying that. And then one day I felt compelled in a bookstore to walk down the aisle that I never went down, which was spirituality and religion. And I went down there and a book caught my eye. It was called You Are Psychic, which, as I say, I had no interest in, but for some reason I just had to read that book. And I started reading it in the bookstore. It was so compelling, I actually sat down on the floor in the bookstore, started reading. Anyway, they had an exercise in this book where you would ask for a word for the day. You breathe down to a quiet place and ask for a word for a day. And of course, you're asking your intuition that, right?
Yeah.
And since I was already doing daily pages, I thought, oh, okay, well, I can do that. So I did it. I trained myself to breathe down to a quiet place, ask for a word for the day, and then amazing things would happen, right? That word would show up in some way, or it would end up being a piece of marvelous advice, that word. Then I started getting sentences. And so I was asking, well, is there any advice for me out there? And one day I was asking for a girlfriend who had a big problems. I was asking for advice for her, and a new voice came, and it was very authoritative, much more so than what I had been, those little words I've been getting. And so I said, "Who are you?" And the answer was, "I am Quado." And so from then, I started just every morning. I would get messages from Quado. I get up at 4 in the morning, go down to the garden, get my messages from Quado, go back up to my computer and post them on the internet, and then go get on the freeway to drive to my work.
Good gracious.
So that was the beginning.
And now?
And now, gee, that was 25 years ago. So we've had a lot of adventures in between. It's just as you said, it's like I'm in a candy shop. I just love it. And my latest adventure that I am now excited about delving into is an energy called Attaquay that came to me. I'm blessed that all of this just comes to me. It's like my whole adventure with the shamanism too. A shaman showed up in my head,
Right.
and I just have a lot of things going on up there. So I had this energy. I was doing my own personal journey into spirit, and there was a portal, and I went through the portal, and on the other side of this portal was this energy that was is called Wanataqwe, and it wanted to be brought back through the portal into the earth as things are now. It was active, very active, thousands of years ago in the Amazon area. And then when those people, when the Wanataqua people died out, it withdrew. And now it wants to be a part of our lives. And it has been, I worked with Wanataqua for a little while, and then it went traveling around. It wanted to go see how the world is. Now it has returned to me. And I am getting this amazing language. There are certain concepts that in this, when you're experimenting with spirituality, it's frustrating because we don't have the words.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the great gifts of Wanataqua has been these words, like the one that I said, Attaquay. And Attaquay is the word that I was given for that territory that we go to, that where we have so much fun, where our intuition and serendipity, and where you can get guidance. That's where you can get guidance from angels or power animals or spiritual entities, whatever your way is.
Now we're going to have to go to a short break, but we have many thousands of people who listen to this show, and there'll be people who understand what you're talking about and feel really comfortable about exploring a spiritual world where there are angels and guides and so on. And there'll be other people at the other end of the continuum who think, what on earth is she talking about? And people all the way through the middle. So how do you think we can access that inner wisdom, intuition, gut feeling, call it what you will, and use it to help us in terms of our daily living or in business or in leadership?
Yeah, well, that's a great question and something I love, because I used, I was in the corporate world, and my corporate life overlapped with when I began my spiritual explorations. And so I would use what I was learning in the spiritual world in my corporate life. And the main thing that you need to do is you need, well, first off, let me say something. Everybody has intuition, everybody uses it, but they use it differently.
Okay.
And you know that we have it because we all have these experiences. Like, for example, knowing who's on the telephone before you actually answer the phone, and knowing that you should take something with you when you go somewhere, even though it doesn't make sense at the time. I had, someone told me a story. I was giving a talk on intuition, and she said, yes, I had the most interesting experience. I was going on a long road trip, and just as I was walking out the door, I thought, I need to take a screwdriver with me, which is, it didn't make any sense to her, but she did it. She listened, right? She went back, she got the screwdriver, she got in the car, she went in her car, developed a problem, and she was able to open up the hood and fix the problem with the screwdriver that she had with her, which is, of course, amazing. I couldn't possibly fix any problem with a car with a screwdriver.
I could have a whole toolbox of screwdrivers. I'm not sure that it would help me fix the car.
It wouldn't have helped me at all. But we do all have those experiences, and we know we do because all the time we say, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I should have brought that with me. We have those experiences all the time, and that's our intuition. When we ignore our intuition, we pay a price. It's that little voice, that little feeling that you have. So one of the things that I always like to do is, before anything important, an interview, a meeting with someone, certainly in businesses, I use this all the time. Shortly before, say 15 minutes before, because things change, so you need to ask before. You breathe down to a quiet place, and if you've been practicing in the morning, practicing your word for the day, or practicing meditation, or ways to get quiet, then you ask, how shall I approach this? How shall I approach this meeting? How shall I approach this interview? And something will just come into your mind. You need to capture the very first words, before your thinking mind tells you it doesn't make any sense. So an example that I had was, I was going to a very important job interview. I was interviewing to replace a project manager. And I was interviewing with the project manager who was leaving. And so just shortly before the interview, I asked, how shall I approach this meeting? And the answer just came in right into my head and said, don't let her get away with anything. And I thought that was a really odd answer.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's the answer I got. So I went into the meeting, and she was this lovely person. We had a very nice conversation. She's showing me all the things that I would be taking over if I'm the project manager. But she had this plan, and it had just these high level tasks and timelines. And so I asked her for the detail behind it, and she kind of fudged around and kind of redirected me and didn't give me a direct answer. And then I remembered what my intuition had said, and I was, don't let her get away with anything. So I pushed her and kept pushing until finally she had to admit she didn't have any detail behind it. All she had was a timeline with, well, these are the tasks we're going to do. And this was a big, complex computer implementation with a lot of staff, and she did not have a detailed plan. And because of that, I was able to go to the management then and say, well, you're not making those deadlines. And got the job, which turned into a long, it turned into me having a vice president position with that company down the road in some years. And all through that, all my work, I just kept honing that skill of using my intuition in practical ways.
I think that's so important, is the honing. So the listeners will know that I was a principal of a large school for over 20 years. And when I was appointing staff, I would go to great lengths to make sure that I appointed the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned very early on that even though people may have had a fabulous interview and their CV may have been really strong, if I had that niggle that said, I'm not sure, I needed to listen to it. You know, if there was a member of staff or a child and there was something, I'd have a feeling I need to investigate that, then without exception, once I dug beyond the surface, there was something that needed sorting.
Yes, yes.
And I think we often dismiss those things. And I just
at our peril.
Well, you know, Warren Buffett talks about the fact that he did not listen to his intuition early on in his career,
Mm-hmm.
and it cost him $1 billion.
Oh, all right.
And he talked quite openly about using his intuition. Richard Branson talks about using his intuition in terms of, have I got enough data? Have I got the right data? Have I, you know, the time that's going to take me to get more data, is that worth spending that time? You know, is it cost effective? And I think for all of us, that how we use our intuition isn't as important as recognizing that our intuition is our inner wisdom. And that when we get away from the white noise of the world and allow ourselves to be quiet and start to ask our inner wisdom, what should we do? How should we handle this?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here? We then give ourselves the best chance. And there's lots and lots of different ways of doing it. You've talked about journaling and asking the question. But, you know, if you're listening to this, I wonder how often you go and you have your best ideas in the shower, or when you're running, or that you set a question just before you go to sleep, and when you wake up in the middle of the night and your mind has got, and I could do this and that and that and that and that, and if you capture it, your problem is solved, ready for the next day. And I think it's trusting it, isn't it?
Yes, and it's also learning how to get out of the confused mind and the busy mind that is running in circles and not getting you anywhere. How to breathe. Do you know, even if every morning, if all you did was take 3 deep breaths, and spend a moment in silence, you're on the way to being able to access it. And to learn how that feel, there's a feel when you train yourself to breathe into space and quiet. There's that kind of a zony feel that you can get. It says, now, okay, I've dropped out of my thinking mind and I'm into my intuitive mind, and that's where all the good stuff is.
And I think that's why things like being in the shower or the bath or going for a run or listening to music, for me, it's being in the garden or being in nature, that works well. The title of your book?
The title of my book is Sojourner in Attaquay, Mind-Expanding Ideas and Practical Tools for the Open-Minded Seeker of a Meaningful Life.
So what will people who buy and read your book, what will they get out of it?
Well, one of the things you're going to get out of the book is that I go in depth into intuition, into an explanation of 4 intuitive senses that you can learn to access, and some ways you can learn to access those. I also start with my ideas on what the universe is all about, about the web of the universe and the path of destiny, and how much of life is destiny and how much is free will. And I wonder, just quickly, since we talked so much about intuition, I wanted to add one little thing. As we've talked about words in the mind and the like, but I wanted to, these intuitive senses also include the intuitive sense of feeling.
I think for many people, it's the feeling rather than the words.
Yes, I think it's the most common.
Yeah. Well, that's why we talk about that gut feeling, that unsettledness, that it's
exactly. And one way you can really practice that at work that's really fun is it's just about awareness. Is when you walk into a room, just tune in to your body. What's in your solar plexus? What's happening there? Can you feel? Sometimes you can walk into a room, and I'm sure everyone's experienced this. You feel the tension in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know somebody in there just had an argument, even though right now nothing's going on. And this is true all across the board. You can learn to just tune into the other people you work with your body. And also, if you think about it, how we protect ourselves by crossing our arms over our stomach.
Yeah.
Is just we do that when we're in a space where we don't like the energy, and we protect ourselves. So that's the senses of hearing, of course, we talked about, and feeling. Yeah. Also knowing.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that you just know. And the knowing is that, like, oh, I know I need to take a screwdriver with me. I know I shouldn't do that. And the last one is seeing. Some people, of course, have visions, both, and of course we have dreams that sometimes speak to us intuitively, and we know that was an important dream. And all of these I explain in my book with some examples and ways to look at it. And I have, in the last half of the book, it's called a toolkit. I put in there all of the very best tools and techniques that I learned over my 25 years of experimentation. I put them all in the book.
Brilliant. Now we're getting to the end of the show. Where can people find your book? Where can people find you?
Well, the best way is to go to my website, carriehart.com. That's CARRIEHART.com. And if you go to carriehart.com, you'll see a link to be able to buy the book on Amazon. And also, since I know that's a title isn't going to stick in your mind right off the bat, you need to see it. You'll see that you'll be able to look at the book. And also, I'd love is if your readers would sign up on my newsletter, because I have new things that I'm exploring and learning all the time. And how I let people know is through sending out an occasional newsletter to say, whoa, I have something new going on. So you can do that on carriehart.com.
That's brilliant. Now, we're very proud to be members of B1G1, Buy One, Give One. And we invite, it's an organisation that provides support through a whole range of projects worldwide to do with clean water, health, education, the environment, just a whole wealth of different projects. All of the projects are vetted, and all of the money that is donated goes to supporting the projects. And it's amazing. It's designed for businesses so businesses can make giving part of what they do and part of their marketing and so on. It just remains for me to say a huge thank you to you, Carrie, and to thank you for listening. Do please join me on the next show. It's lovely to have you here. I'd love to hear from you and how you're doing and what your story is. Please email me at Gina@GinaGardiner and Friends, and Gardner's got an eye in it. That's Gina Gardiner and Friends. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye-bye now.